Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dan Deerdorf. Well, the boxing community, a host of celebrities, and a massive media contingent were here in Atlantic City last night to see George Foreman and Evander Holyfield. Some of them have stayed because this fight today has drawn a lot of interest, and that's because of Holyfield's victory. Evander must now choose an opponent, and Bowe's camp feels that that opponent should be him. We're going to have a report later, by the way, on our show about last night's fight, plus interviews with Foreman and Holyfield. Now, Riddick Bowe is often called the other heavyweight from Brooklyn, and that's a reference, of course, to Mike Tyson, who grew up just several blocks away from Riddick. We returned home with Riddick Bowe and found that boxing, for him, well, it was actually a refuge. Please, listen closely to what he has to say.
Well, you know, Mike Tyson had his pigeons, and up here, I had my peace and quiet. This spot here is where I always came to get away from it all.
Riddick Bowe had reason to escape. Life in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn offered little for a small boy. But then he found boxing. At 17, he made it to the finals of the New York Golden Gloves and won. And now at 23, he's made the cover of KO magazine.
Why did I fight? Well, I had to fight to survive. It was rough in the neighborhood, and basically I got into it because I didn't want to get into any trouble on the street.
The streets were full of crack, which indirectly took the life of one of his sisters in 1988. He lived here with his mother and 12 siblings, and we recently went back with him and saw things had changed.
How you doing? Okay? Well, this is where I once lived. This place here is called the Plaza. Brings back a lot of memories. Well, I remember there used to be a lot of garbage here. I had to step over to get upstairs. And here there used to be a table and chairs and what have you. And people used to line up from the wall all the way outside to buy crack. I used to thought it was a soup kitchen or something.
As soon as he could, Riddick moved his own family and mother out to where they now live in Fort Washington, Maryland.
I wanted better things, big and better things, you know. I wanted people to like me. I guess, you know, I wanted to be known for something real exciting and real good.
And there is Riddick Bowe in his corner, the Olympic silver medalist from the 1988 games. He lost to Canadian Lennox Lewis, but professionally an unblemished 22-0 record with 20 knockouts. And today he faces the former heavyweight champion of the world. There is Tony Tubbs. Tony Tubbs, the former champion, as I said. He beat Greg Page back in '85. He lost it in '86 to Tim Witherspoon, his professional record 29-2. But you notice one no decision. He failed a drug test after beating Orland Norris. As always, my partner, Alex Swallow. And Alex, we were here 7 weeks ago when we watched Riddick Bowe fight Terrell Biggs. That was quite a test for him, wasn't it?
It really was, Dan, and an excellent learning experience for Riddick as well. But usually when a fighter runs into tough opposition like that, we say that he answered a lot of questions about his ability and his character. I think the Biggs fight raised more questions than it answered about Riddick Bowe, because he was wobbled several times by a guy not known for his power, and because he went through periods where he looked very stationary and very easy to hit. You must say one thing for the two men guiding Bowe's career, his manager Rock Newman and his great trainer Eddie Futch. They believe in Riddick enough to keep putting him in with potentially difficult opposition. In this case, Tony Tubbs, a guy blessed with a lot of natural talent, an outstanding amateur, probably the quickest man his size in the history of boxing. The problem is Tony's size. He has always appeared overweight, never made the total commitment that boxing demands. If he's in the shape he says he is today, it could be a very interesting afternoon.
Go ahead and take a look at the tail of the tape. You'll notice right off the bat, Tubbs 10 years older. But the key thing here for Tubbs, at 234, he's coming in about 11 pounds lighter than his last couple of fights. The New Jersey rules are in effect. We'll have a 10-point must system. The 3 knockdown rule and the standing 8 are in effect. A fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round, and the ringside physician can and may stop the bite. And there's Joe Cortez, who is our referee here today. And there is the bell. This is scheduled for 10 rounds, and Riddick Bowe leads it off with a good, solid jab.
Yeah, that was a wake-up call for Tony Tubbs. I mean, we thought that Tubbs who has the superior hand speed.
Oh, a big right hand.
I think that might have been, I'm not sure, Dan. I think that might have
hit a lot of gloves.
Yeah,
it hit a lot of gloves. Some of it hit the air, though.
So far, Tony Tubbs not doing anything of what we expected in terms of trying to establish his jab. That being Tony Tubbs in the black trunks, wants to make this fight a test of skill. Riddick Bowe in the white trunks wants to make it a test of power. He has a big edge in that department. And I think really the key is, Dan, who is in condition to impose the nature of the fight, to dictate the pace.
Left hand to the body by Riddick Bowe, down by the belt. Both fighters hitting in tight.
Inside uppercut by Riddick Bowe, and another.
Oh, and another. You could see that last uppercut landing flush on the chin. And Tony Tubbs is up against the ropes
and hurt.
Tony Tubbs is throwing nothing back.
Remember, Riddick Bowe had Terrell Biggs hurt early in his fight and could not finish him. Did catch up with him later in the fight.
He actually had Biggs hurt much quicker than this. He hurt Biggs about 10 seconds into the fight. We're here in round one. And already a tough experience for Tony Tubbs.
But as you watch the learning of Riddick Bowe, right now he's making a mistake. He's letting Tony Tubbs lay inside with him when he's got him hurt. He's got an advantage. He should be getting distance with the jab and throwing hard punches.
Get those arms out.
You can hear Joe Cortez, the referee, telling the fighters to work their way out. He's the referee that doesn't come in and break up every time the fighters are in close. Oh, and another good left, and then another right by Riddick Bowe.
And the surprising thing here, Dan, is that Riddick really is right up there in terms of hand speed with Tony Tubbs. Tony seems to have lost some of his speed, and Riddick is matching him.
Bowe's camp was actually, Alex, worried when Tubbs came in what they thought was better shape than they anticipated. But it has been all Riddick Bowe. Well, you can see Tubbs had to spin all the way around after a wild right.
You saw Tony score his best punch of the fight, a left hook, but although Tony might land some punches that look like they should do some damage, he is not a power puncher at all. He doesn't plan himself, he backs off, he's got his weight back. He doesn't commit enough to a punch to hurt anybody.
The final seconds here of the first round. Remember, we're scheduled for 10. A solid beginning for Riddick Bowe. Here's the beginning of the second round, and if it wasn't a bad enough round for Tony Tubbs, he actually took a strong right hand from Riddick Bowe in the last second of the first round.
Remember, Tony Tubbs has only been stopped once in his career, that by Mike Tyson after Tony got off to a good start of their fight in Tokyo. Mike caught him with a left hook late in the second round, and Tony's cornerman jumped in immediately and stopped the fight.
Riddick Bowe right now content to stand in the middle of the ring and let Tubbs circle around. Riddick Bowe yesterday telling us that he was going to be the aggressor, that he did not want Tubbs to get set, that he wanted him to constantly be fighting off balance. Called Tubbs what? A slickster.
Tony Tubbs came in the ring bone dry when the bell for round one started. He is right now pouring sweat. That first round got his attention.
A very cautious round so far by Riddick Bowe.
These two men have sparred in the gym, Dan, and I think they both know that they like to counterpunch, and I think that's why they're both waiting so much.
There is Riddick's wife, Judy, who is ringside.
What's the head? What's the head? Let me hold. Let me
I
hold.
believe some of Riddick's children are here in attendance as well. A very affable young man, Riddick Bowe.
You always get worried, Dan, to have two guys who have been sparring partners. You always worry when Riddick Bowe's people take a guy that they've sparred with. You think, well, they know that this guy represents no threat. The strange thing about this fight is that, according to people who have no alignment with either camp, Tony Tubbs gave Riddick Bowe all he wanted in those sparring sessions out in Las Vegas. And the people who saw those sparring sessions, when they heard that Tony Tubbs would be the opponent, were amazed.
But wouldn't you agree that Bowe's camp also assumed that Tubbs would show up for this fight somewhere around 250 pounds in the high 240s?
That's right, but what Riddick said was, Tony may think that I'm going to be the same fighter I was in the gym. I'm going to be much better on the day of the fight.
I think Terrell Biggs made sure of that. This is not the same fighter that Tony Tubbs sparred with. 20 seconds left here in the second round. An interesting weekend in the heavyweight division.
There you saw Riddick had trouble lining up Tony Tubbs. Tony moving a little bit laterally each way, and Riddick missed 3 straight punches.
Somewhat of a cautious round here for Riddick Bowe. End of the second. Tony Tubbs in the black trunks. Riddick Bowe on the left of your screen wearing the white trunks with the red trim. So far this fight, as expected, belongs to Riddick Bowe. Tony Tubbs in trouble in the first round, though, came back, and Riddick Bowe, Alex, surprisingly, really didn't press the issue much in the second round.
Oh, that was surprising. The other thing that's made this fight boring so far is the fact that because Tony got hurt so quick in round 1, so far he's been fighting just kind of survive and not to win. And he's getting eaten up on the inside by Riddick Bowe.
Yeah, the uppercut of Riddick Bowe, he landed 3 solid ones in the first round, and again, we saw one land.
The interesting thing about Riddick Bowe, Dan, is, as you saw just in that exchange, although he's got long arms, a big man, very physically gifted, best combination of the fight by Tony Tubbs.
Exactly right.
You would want Riddick, and Eddie Futch does, want him to fight at distance, using the jab to keep his man on the outside. But he is very effective on the inside and getting better all the time.
There is Tony Tubbs' wife, Ingrid. She's certainly interested here at ringside. Tony Tubbs makes his home in Pacific Palisades, California. Just flew in here to Atlantic City yesterday morning. Good look at that jab of Riddick Bowe coming right at you. We are in the third round, a little over halfway gone. This fight's scheduled for 10. And Tony Tubbs beginning to look, Alex, like a fighter with a little more confidence.
He seems to be getting into a little bit more.
Bring out clean.
Riddick Bowe upset that he ate so many of Terrell Biggs' jabs back in early March. Allowed to move his head more, that he spent the last 7 weeks working on slipping that jab.
You
notice any difference?
Well, I think he's doing a little bit better, but yeah, good strong jab by Riddick Bowe. I think, you know, the key has been so far the fact that he hurt Tony early and really knocked him right out of his plan. So that Tony hasn't been firing as many jabs.
I know one thing, there is clearly an audible difference between the punches of Riddick Bowe and Tony Tubbs. Bowe's punches just echoing through the building here. This fight is scheduled for 10 as we come to the end of the third. Move to the middle of the ring here to get round 4 started. I'm Dan Deerdorf here in Atlantic City along with Alex Wallow. Glad you're with us here on ABC's Wide World of Sports.
If you saw that combination, Dan, that Tony Tubbs scored in the last round, you wonder, you know, why doesn't he try to do that more often? Why does he just pick so much and be, you know, essentially a negative fighter? And the answer is, I think he just doesn't have enough confidence in his conditioning to think that he can put punches together and throw hard punches consistently through a 10-round, a 12-round fight. Why a man with as much talent as Tony has wouldn't get himself in absolutely peak condition to try to go after the kind of millions of dollars that are available to heavyweights, even as contenders for the heavyweight championship, is one of the great mysteries.
I doubt there's a man in America who weighs over 200 pounds that isn't aware of the kind of money that Evander Holyfield and George Foreman took to the bank last night.
Yeah, and I saw you working with the heavy bag on your front porch in St. Louis.
It's enough to make you think about it. But George, what, a minimum of $12.5 million, and Holyfield in excess of 20?
And if the pay-per-view numbers are what they are reported to be, both fighters will make several million in excess of their guarantee.
Well, something tells me that has not escaped Riddick Bowe's attention or Rock Newman, his manager.
Hey! Bring out, get the hand
If these two heavyweights don't start putting some more punches together, I think we're going to have a lot of financial reports on pay-per-view boxing.
Again, a reminder that coming up later in our show that we'll have a report and interviews. Alex talked to both Evander Holyfield and George Foreman. That'll be up before the end of the show after this fight.
Bring out me.
Cortez steps in, separates the fighters. That jab is finding glove. Well, one of America's great fight fans is here in attendance today. There's Gene Hackman. He was at ringside as well last night, and if there's a big fight, Gene Hackman is there. And he is not there to be noticed or sign autographs. He's there because he's a tremendous fight fan.
And you know that because he comes and watches the 4-round prelims and stays through the walkout fights.
Riddick Bowe talked of being the aggressor. He certainly is, but again, spending a lot of time in the middle of the ring, letting Tubbs circle to the outside.
All right, bring out. Let him go.
Round 4 is coming to a close. Stay with us, won't you? And we're now in the 5th round from Harrah's in Atlantic City. That's Riddick Bowe on the left, Tony Tubbs on your right. Oh, and there's a good right hand from Riddick Bowe. Tony Tubbs was in real trouble in the 1st round. It was a typical start for Riddick Bowe, getting his opponent in trouble. But then, for some reason, Riddick Bowe really took it easy and allowed Tony Tubbs to regroup in the 2nd round, and he appears to be unfazed.
You know, you almost get the feeling watching Riddick that he's trying so hard to learn his lessons that he's a little bit mechanical right now. You can see him thinking what Eddie Futch has put in him and what he's to do. And he's got to just get this stuff to become second nature so he reacts more and doesn't think quite as much. And that's just all part of the learning process.
If you're going to learn, it's hard to imagine having someone in your corner more knowledgeable than Eddie Futch. And I guess a key factor there is what Riddick Bowe thinks of Futch. He refers to him as his Papa Smurf, and you know, obviously an extremely close relationship between the two. Speaking of close relationships, I want to pass along our congratulations to Jimmy Davis, audio technician here at ABC, who's retiring after 39 years with our company. Jimmy and his wife Imelda are going to move to upstate New York, a town called Edinburgh on the great Sacandaga Lake, Alex. And we're going to miss Jimmy, a part of our Monday night booth, 20 Indy 500s. Good luck, Jimmy. Happy retirement.
One of the great audio men and lovable characters on the scene at ABC Sports.
We want to remind our ABC stations that at the end of this round, we're going to be taking a station break.
Bring out.
There, you saw Riddick trying it there, putting jabs together, not single punches. He wasn't effective with it there. Double jab again.
But on none of those double jabs did he follow up with a right hand.
No, he didn't. But he did learn one thing. When he puts jabs together, nothing comes back from Tony Tubbs. Because Tony, you know, there it is again. It's tough to counter off a double jab.
Come on, work out, Bowe.
Riddick's just pushing it. He's not snapping it, and he's not accurate with it. But, you know, you just like to see him trying it.
Sure. Come on, work out. Watch your head. Give me a good shot.
There, it was a sign of the hand speed of Tony Tubbs.
And you can see the look on Bowe's face that caught him by surprise. The end of round 5, ABC's Wide World of Sports will return after this word from our ABC station. All right, let's move into the 2nd half of this fight, the 6th round here from Harrah's Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Dan Deerdorf, Alex Wallow ringside. This is Tony Tubbs and Riddick Bowe. Ooh, and Riddick Bowe working low to the body, lands a couple of good shots. One of them borderline.
And Tony Tubbs retaliated pretty effectively. I think Riddick Bowe would be well served to try to pick up the pace here. This kind of slow pace favors a guy who is not well conditioned, who is not, bred to the distance. To use the Derby parlance we're going to get into very soon.
And Alex, of course, referring to the fact that Riddick Bowe is 23 and Tony Tubbs is 33.
And in Riddick's corner between rounds, Eddie Futch, his 80-year-old trainer who's been around longer than anybody who's active today and knows more and has more to teach. Really wanted Riddick to get into the range and to land some body shots. Good counter left there by Tony Tubbs.
Sure was.
So far, Riddick hasn't been able to do it.
Let's go.
But Alex, I guess you have to agree that Tony Tubbs and 7 weeks ago Terrell Biggs are the type of opponent that Riddick Bowe needs to face if he's to continue to grow.
Yeah, he doesn't learn anything getting put in with guys who fall down in the first punch, but at the same time, as we said in the opening, Dan, these are valuable learning experiences, and hats off to Rock Newman and Eddie Futch for taking guys who can fight. But at the same time, these kind of opponents are exposing the things Riddick doesn't have right now in terms of the ability to control the pace, to dictate the pace, to finish a guy when you got him hurt. And as we said earlier also, he's a little bit mechanical. Whether he will stay mechanical, as I said, will be determined down the road when he's had an opportunity to let all the things he's trying to digest become natural to him.
Again, you saw Bowe go to the uppercut. That one wasn't as clean as some of the ones he landed previously.
Nor is he throwing him with the same kind of conviction. He should be wasting punches on the inside. He should be maybe take a step back, get a little bit of punching room, and throw hard punches.
You guys are wrestling, both of you guys. Come on, let's go.
Joe Cortez admonishing both fighters, accusing them of wrestling. Riddick Bowe closes out number 6 with a flurry. Here we go in the 7th round. And Alex, Tony Tubbs, who's on the right in the black trunks. Riddick Bowe wearing the white. Tony Tubbs is still here, but I don't have him winning a round yet.
Well, I think you can make a case for him in a couple of rounds where there weren't a lot of really meaningful blows. But you have to have Bowe ahead comfortably. And you just don't see at this point whether Tony Tubbs has the kind of game plan that's going to get him back into the fight. He might have a game plan, whether he has the conditioning to execute the game plan has always been the key, and it's always been his downfall. And really, at age 33, the big edge he had, his hand speed, you have to say that's diminished somewhat, too. It's not totally gone. He's still got some quick hands, but not what they used to be.
Bowe feigning with a left came in then and badly off balance sailed over the top of Tony Tubbs.
That was the case of a former outstanding amateur looking very amateurish.
Oh, good left hand by Tubbs.
And that time Tony beat Riddick to the punch, and I believe he hurt him a little bit, just stunned him momentarily. And if I wasn't sure of that, I'm now sure since Riddick made a face like he wasn't hurt. Tony does not follow up.
Again, it looked like, though, that the reason Bowe got hit like that is he was off balance again. He was a little top-heavy, leaning far too forward.
He was trying to throw a punch, and Tony landed one before he did, and he was off balance.
A reminder that at the conclusion of this fight, we're going to have a report on last night's heavyweight championship fight between Evander Holyfield and George Foreman. We will have interviews with both of the fighters.
Oh, we got it. Come on, get the thumbs out. Get him out. Come on, watch your head. Watch your head.
Meanwhile, we're watching other heavyweight action.
Let go, Bowe.
And Riddick Bowe, the man on the right, certainly has to view himself eventually as a man who's going to step into the ring and fight for the title.
Hold on, guys. All right, let him up.
At least I hope he is. Everybody else is viewing him as such.
A lot of brawling, a lot of wrestling, but there were some clean punches landed in that exchange on the inside. Tough to score those kinds of exchanges. watched a little bit of movement that Tony Tubbs gives. The problem with it is that he goes both ways. He moves both sides. And that's giving Riddick some trouble in terms of cutting the ring off to land his punches. There he's moving left, but see, he comes right back to the right. And Riddick's not able to get set.
Well, if this fight does go the distance, 3 judges at ringside, Frank Caro, Gene Williams, and Richard Strange. We're scheduled for 10. This is the end of 7. Here we go for round number 8. We're in Atlantic City at Harrah's. Riddick Bowe and Tony Tubbs. And the fighting moves inside. Oh, there's that uppercut again. Again, that uppercut by Riddick Bowe, and another right hand scores. That time when both fighters were in close, it was obvious to see the scoring punches landed by Bowe.
Eddie Futch told Riddick in between rounds, you can win this fight on the jab. And I think he's right. I think he can win it that way. And the first obligation of a fighter is to win the fight. But in this case, I think Riddick Bowe has an additional burden on him. The burden of being exciting, of being entertaining. He's doing the first thing. He's not doing the second.
But if you had to pick one,
I like his
you would win. But you're right. Look at George Foreman. Look at the money he made off of the entertainment factor.
The one thing I must say I liked about Riddick in talking to him before this fight, Dan, was, you know, we all knew he had a great physical makeup, but, you know, as we said when he fought Terrell Biggs, a lot of people questioned his mental makeup, his commitment. And he has been much more serious, much more mature, relaxed, less to clowning around, and that really bodes well for his future down the road. But if you hear all the talk, which I think you're going to hear about Riddick as a possible immediate challenger for either Holyfield or Mike Tyson, take it with a huge grain of salt, because he is not ready.
And I don't think you'll hear it coming from Riddick. Riddick is the last person to say, I want my shot now, I'm ready, I'm going to be the champion. He's a patient man, and he's a child, Alex. He's only 23 years old.
That's right, and I think Rock Newman, his manager, is smart enough about the public relations aspects of this business to know that it's good PR to let your fighter's name be bandied about, but I think he also knows boxing enough to know that he's not ready.
A fight that does so many million in 1991 will do even more in 92 or 93.
Plus your fighter's got a chance to win.
We're in the 8th round of a fight scheduled for 10.
Or a better chance to win. I mean, you know, sometimes a fighter can wait 10 years and never develop into the kind of man who can win a world championship. And I think the jury is still out on Riddick.
It has been a very solid and comprehensive effort by Riddick Bowe. He should be well ahead on the cards, but there are 2 rounds to go. Let's move into round number 9. Tubbs and Bowe. A 10-round non-title fight. The title fight was last night. And again, a reminder, we'll have a report on that coming up at the conclusion of this fight. A report on the fight between Evander Holyfield and George Foreman. Oh, a trio of good lefts that time by Tony Tubbs. And here's the most action we've seen since the first round.
Best exchange of the fight. Riddick opened the round with a good scoring right hand. Tony Tubbs took it, came back with a series of 4 and 5 scoring punches. Riddick took those and came back. This might be the kind of a round at this stage in round 9 where Tony Tubbs knows that he's got enough in his tank to last 2 more rounds, and he's going to let it all hang out. He has to know he's behind. He just hasn't thrown enough punches to win.
Well, there was a wild right by Tubbs.
Airball.
Was a good 6 inches short. Airball is a very good discussion. Alex, a crossover term, huh? You know, a reminder I should pass along that a week from tomorrow is going to be the 30th anniversary show of ABC's Wide World of Sports. And Alex, I want to lead you into this. A good segment of that show is going to be on some of the great boxing that's taken place on ABC over the years.
Dan, boxing really has played a big role in the 30-year history of Wide World, and I had a lot of fun working on those segments, and I think for the boxing fans in the audience, they will get a tremendous kick out of seeing especially the retrospective of Muhammad Ali's career, and I hope they share my feelings about a visit I made to Muhammad at his farm in Michigan a couple of weeks ago, because it was a very special moment with an unbelievably special man.
And I think you will put aside some, I'm going to call them myths that are floating around about as to the state of Ali's condition and his ability to care for himself.
Well, the one thing, I went out there, Dan, scared to death because of the way I had seen Muhammad. He looks bad when you see him walking and when you hear him talking. His movements are very slow and his speech is very low and slurred. But when you spend time with him, as I had a chance to do, you understand that that he is in there. The mind is 100% intact, and that was very, very reassuring to me. And he still enjoys life in a special way.
That's a week from tomorrow, right here on your ABC station, the 30th anniversary special of ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Let me say, Dan, I'm not trying to be apologist for boxing or for the damage that Muhammad suffered in the ring, and we all wish he hadn't done it. But he is in better shape than I have been led to believe.
We have one round to go. Tony Tubbs and Riddick Bowe. Stay with us. And finds himself off balance, and Tubbs has done a good job all fight long of throwing in a decent counterpunch every now and then.
You know, those kind of punches you see right there are amateur punches where you just want to put the white portion of the glove on the opponent. In the professional ranks, you have to make the punches count for something.
And that a punch that appears to expend a lot more energy than damage it exacts from your opponent.
Let's look at the negatives and the positives in this fight, Dan. For Riddick Bowe, this is the longest he has ever gone. He had an 8-round decision. All his other fights have been less. So he's into a 10th round. I think Riddick knew coming in that he would have to go the 10-round distance with Tony Tubbs. He's a durable opponent, smart veteran who knows how to survive and has. And it's possible that the kind of pacing that you've seen from Riddick is just a product of that fear of the distance, that unknown territory. In terms of, negatives, I just think Riddick has not shown yet that he is the instinctive kind of fighter you have to be at world-class level.
I agree. I think back to what you said, he needs to think less and react more.
But I don't think it's necessarily bad at this stage, to fight this kind of a fight while he's learning.
After our fight, we'll have our report and our interviews with George Foreman and Evander Holyfield. 1 minute left here in the 10th and final round of this heavyweight fight. And Tony Tubbs is trying his darndest to knock him out, because that, for sure, is his only chance of winning this fight. Oh, a good left hand right to the solar plexus by Tubbs.
If you're trying to gauge the opposition in determining this performance, remember one thing about Tony Tubbs. He's only lost 2 fights, both with the men who held the world championship, Mike Tyson and Tim Witherspoon. He is a difficult opponent, not easy to look good with.
And I think Alex, a man who desperately wanted to show that he's just not washed up.
You're right, Dan. You just wonder why he didn't take this opportunity to get himself in tip-top condition.
There's the bell. That's the end of the fight. So we will be back with the decision and then our report on Evander Holyfield and George Foreman, their undisputed heavyweight fight. All right, thank you, Frank. This fight went to the distance, so we need a decision for that. Let's go up to the ring announcer. Here's Ed Darian.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Harris, Atlantic City, New Jersey, the scoring by points as follows. Judges Frank J. Cairo and Richard Strange each score 96-94, while Judge Jean Williams, she observed 97-93. For the winner by unanimous decision and still undefeated, Bowe.
So Riddick Bowe, the winner as he wins by decision.